Hey,
There.
Lewis.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
I've got one eye on the Apple WWDC right now.
What's happening there?
It's their big product announcement. You know,
Oh, I mean, are you looking for something specifically, or?
no, I don't think they're going to announce any hardware. The new iMac looks pretty cool. The rumored iMac. I think they're going to not going to release it until the end of next year or the end of the year rather. But it just no bezel at all. Just
Oh,
you know,
really? Hmm,
yeah. So that seems cool. But
that's cool.
a lot of OS stuff. The next Mac OS, I think, is going to be Big Sur, but they haven't announced that officially yet.
Yeah, I won't be upgrading then either.
But I
Um,
mean, my iMac is a 2017.
yeah,
I'm actually taking advantage of all the latest stuff and just keeping up
yeah.
with the updates. Keep, keeping
Nope.
my
I mean, maybe next year I'll get a new laptop, and then I'll definitely end up buying a new iPhone soon.
yeah.
I mean, I have a 6,
Oh yeah, you're way overdue.
but I like it. So
Yeah. Well, get the SE. Will be would be the most seamless transition for you. The new SE
oh,
two.
really? Not the 12 coming up?
Well, if you want a bigger screen and want it to be completely different, yeah. If you want all the latest Gugas and the best camera, go to the 12.
Yeah,
But if you want something that's like your phone that you have now, same size, has a home button, but
yeah.
faster and won't be obsoleted, get the SE2 and it's
Huh, okay.
399 as opposed to what, 1,200 bucks.
Well, I will consider that as well. Does that have the same cameras like the 11?
Yeah, it's at least the same camera as the 11. Yes,
Not the 11 Pro or 11
right. I think
Mega?
it's only a single camera, so you don't get the double camera stuff.
Oh, right.
So that would be one advantage to go to the other.
Anyway, I won't do it until I have to these days. I'm not going to drop any money
Yeah,
unless
tell me about it.
it's really necessary.
Yeah, of course we're talking about all these house projects we want to jump into. It's like, well, let's wait till I'm working again.
Yeah, that would be good. Well, you are working a little bit.
Yeah, well, I was. I mean,
Hey,
I got
Cal.
nothing. Hey, Kale,
Yeah,
I got nothing now. I mean, I had 3 days last week.
right.
It was maybe 5 days this month, but I mean, which is I can't complain. But
Yeah, I mean,
so
unemployment for me is 4 days a month.
right,
So
sounds about right.
there's
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, I'm hoping. I consider myself really fortunate. I'm going a little stir crazy. And now,
Yeah.
especially now that Janelle's done for the year, so
Oh,
she,
is she? That's why you're out during the week last week.
yeah, yeah. So we're
Yeah.
spending more. She's trying to keep busy. We're trying to plan a vacation, trying to do something, but our options are limited. It should be nice to see the girls, but
Yeah, well, we just bought over the weekend. We bought tickets to our annual Mexico trip, which will
ah,
happen in December, and that's a bit of a leap of faith. But I
yeah,
did check with Alaska Airlines to see what their peace of mind waiver was, and
hmm,
it basically means if we can't use it this year, the tickets will still be good a year from this December, so we can use it the following year.
yeah,
If it all goes to shit at the end of this year again,
yeah,
or if nothing's open in Mexico, because we really, nobody knows really what's going to happen. But
right,
we figured we might as well just have a little piece of hope in the distance that
yeah,
we're
yeah.
going to
Gotta
get out
plan.
of town.
Yeah, we were thinking of just getting like an Airbnb in the middle of the woods somewhere.
Yeah,
Just to get out of our surroundings.
yeah. We like to go. We used to like to go up to Sea Ranch, or that area up in
Yeah,
Mendocino.
yeah,
It's drivable and it's nice out there. It's pretty isolated. Just depends on what services are available and if restaurants are open and like what you
yeah,
can actually do there.
yeah.
So
And whether you're going to get attacked for wearing a mask.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
That,
Um,
that's our daughter Sophie's big ordeal right now. Is that they've demonized anybody that wears a mask in Oklahoma. So she's afraid to go anywhere.
it's a very funny thing in Oklahoma. We have good friends who are there, and one of them is super intelligent. He worked on Air Force One as a a flight engineer for 15, 20 years.
Uh-huh.
I mean, like super smart guy, right? And
Right.
he still is asking whether or not a mask will help. And it's like,
It's
I
the
don't,
least you can do.
I do not understand your reasoning. It's like, you're a smart guy. It's a respiratory disease transmitted through this part of your face. How can a mask not help?
Yeah.
And in Oklahoma, they just don't seem to think
It's a
that that's a
political
thing.
issue, right?
It's stunning to me how
Yeah.
people's brains work. Kale,
Well,
what do you think about all this?
well, and the other thing is, hey, thanks, man, long time listener. So the other thing is, like, who knows if it helps or whatever, but is it that big of a fucking inconvenience if it can
No.
possibly save your life and the lives of others,
Right.
or
Yeah.
also just keep you healthy, just avoid some pretty severe discomfort and things like that. It's like people have become so lame that like that not only is this a discomfort or an inconvenience, but now it's stepping on their liberties.
Yeah, it's pretty hysterical. It's like, you understand that, you don't really have rights. You have like granted privileges, right?
Thank you.
I
Yes.
mean, the government tells you all sorts of things you can and can't do, and you don't seem to have a problem with those things, but if it stops you
Right.
from getting your hair done, I guess that's what you're going to draw the line at. So,
Or there's that, right? It's like, well, I'm not wearing a mask, but it offends my liberties. But gay marriage, oh, come on.
oh yeah, for sure.
You
Yeah,
got
I
to
know.
draw a line somewhere. You know,
Yeah,
that kind of, I don't even want to, go down that road.
yeah.
But yeah, but also the kind of thing is, I hate to sound like the old guy, get off my lawn,
Well,
but
welcome to the
but
old guy get off my lawn club.
I'm gonna play the World War II card on here. This one is like, what the hell? These people, like, what the nation went through
Yeah.
to get through that,
Hmm?
right? And people now are just like, well, we're 3 months in and I'm tired of this. I don't want it. It's like, holy cow.
I
I
know.
don't know.
So this is probably a month or so ago. Matt Damon was on something. I don't know why I was watching him, but he was sequestered in, I think, Ireland. He was stuck there because he was making a movie and he couldn't get home or something. His family was there. And he said, "This is the sacrifice we're asking of you. Stay at home and watch Netflix."
Yeah.
Is that too hard?
Spend more time with your family. Well,
I
the
mean,
fact that you see these things with I'm pretty much bailing on Instagram because of a lot of stuff, but like, celebrities on there, like, oh, my family's driving me crazy. Boo
yeah.
hoo. You're
Yeah,
getting
come
to
with my
spend,
family.
right, you're getting to spend time with your family. These
Yeah.
are the people you chose to be with. Ay. Anyway.
Yeah, well, you can't choose your family. That is
Right.
part of the
Well,
deal.
that is true.
Hey, Lewis, if my screen goes dark, I have plumbers showing up, so that'll
Okay.
explain why.
Okay.
They were
Everything
supposed to be
okay
here an
there?
hour ago, and they're now telling me they're going to be here soon. So
Is that the excavation in the ceiling in there?
yes, it is. So hopefully they're going to get it done. We got
Just
a second quote, and it was almost 3 times as much as the first quote. And I asked for a time and materials breakdown, and the guy refused to give it to me. And I said, "Well, then you must have idiots for clients, because that's outrageous." So this isn't that company. This is another company.
Did it turn out to be what you thought it was? The tub
Yeah.
overflow? Yeah.
Yep, it was the overflow, and they're replacing it today.
Wasn't connected or just leaking?
It was installed poorly when it was installed a year ago during a bathroom remodel upstairs.
Wow. Andy.
So, and there's
Hey.
Andy.
It works.
We're talking about plumbing.
Yeah, Lewis is back.
Plumbing.
Hey.
Who's got a plumbing issue?
I'm going to have to leave for, we have plumbers showing up in a couple of minutes. I
Oh,
sort of
boy.
missed the meeting where we were trading recipes, though, to be honest.
Ooh.
Oh,
We
who
could
is
go
that?
No,
down
I've
that
been
path.
collecting
We
a
could go down
ton.
that
I've got
path
not
again.
much else to do, so it's like I'm just collecting recipes.
Hey, and real quick before it gets lost and before I forget, Lewis, you were talking about the need for work. I'm pushing to try and get you a gig at the Exploratorium. I think it's on like August 6th. I suppose I should run the date past
Oh,
you.
August is no good for me.
Oh, okay. Sorry. All right then.
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
have them reschedule. They're planning to do a thing, and it's all just kind of a big. It's like this. It's all just a big call-in thing. The director of our board will act as like an MC moderator. They'll have some of our scientists come in, and then they'll do a little chat about stuff. So we need to be, switched, moderated like a show. It's a Zoom. What do they call it? A Zoom cast or a Zoom webcast or something? Zoom webinar.
Webinar, exactly.
Right. It's one of those. And I've seen a number of these things now. So they would need to have someone manage it. Nobody really knows how to do that stuff. I'm reading up on a little bit, but because my hours have been so dramatically cut, I may not even have time to do this thing for them.
Okay.
So I'm asking them to look in to see if they've got any kind of budget for hire on this thing, to bring you on as, consultant specialist. Interested?
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Let me know if it gets firmer. I'll start learning.
Cool.
So it'd be totally remote.
Well, it's just like it's what you do here.
Yeah, totally remote, or would you be basing it out of the forum?
Nope. Just completely remote. Everybody's calling in.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Tim. Hey, Christina.
Hey.
Hello.
Good morning.
Howdy. All right, so we've covered plumbing, and we almost covered recipes. I'm still waiting for that.
Don't bring up sourdough starter if Scott Stender shows up.
No, not sourdough starter.
But he gave me some, and I'm feeling really guilty because I think I might have killed it. I didn't have time last week to deal with it.
You can make your own. It's pretty easy. Yeah.
How do you kill starter?
He was following up, and it was like, oh, I got to deal with that. So it was like this albatross. I just didn't want to deal with it.
Somebody was saying it's this generation's Tamagotchi, or those little pocket toys that kids had that you always had to feed and pet.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things. My sister gave my daughters those for Christmas one year, and it was such an ordeal because they were just guilt. It was such a guilty thing for them. They were always worried about them, and they'd get so upset if they killed them. And
yeah,
it's like, thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah, thanks for bringing more anxiety and stress into my life.
Yeah, exactly.
There was some restaurant somewhere, maybe in New York or something. I think it's an Asian restaurant. They have a pot of soup that's been on the stove for like 80 years or something, and it's just renewed. They never empty it out.
Wow.
They just add more ingredients as it gets depleted. It's been going for a million years.
That's
here in the city, there's a place called Le Central that's had a pot of cassoulet that's been continually going for over 100 years.
That's probably what I heard about.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? I thought I learned a long time ago that there were a lot of diseases that happened because people kept a pot of soup on the stove and never refrigerated it.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine.
Oh yeah. Yeah, just keep it boiling.
Danelle always talks about the family across the street from her in the Sunset that always had a block of butter sitting in the middle of the kitchen table, sitting out, and there was a family of smokers, and she's Lenny's here. Oh, and Danielle's coming in. Cool.
I have a question that is not related to the PPP or anything like that before a lot of other people come on. And that is, I'm buying a fluid head tripod, and somebody told me about the Sackler 75, which is pretty cool because you can adjust the tripod from the top instead of having to.
Oh, I think it's the one Eli got, right? I think I know. It's got the three red handles that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I wondered, could you combine a second fluid head on top of those Sackler 75 legs? I wondered if anyone had ever done that.
A second head on top of the.
A second SECCED.
Oh, a second head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been done because Dave Jensen, who wrote those really great training stuff for the FS7 and other cameras, I noticed he has done it. So I wondered if anyone else here has done that.
I would think, as long as you know the bowl size.
Like the bowl size.
Right. Right.
I'm sorry, I just got here. What was Christina's question?
My question was a question I asked you, Lenny, which was putting, the viability of using the Sackler 75, that very cool legs they have now, the tripod, and then putting a fluid head fluid head on the top.
Well, you can use different heads. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess you don't know for sure until you do it. I would post that on DVX User.
My, you know, you can check. Eli's got a set of those, and he's real happy with the sticks anyway.
Right, but he doesn't have a second head.
No, he doesn't. But the legs themselves.
I mean, there are times where different heads or different bowls are slightly different shapes, and the two shapes don't always match very well. I mean, you have this when you have like an old, like a hi-hat with a different off-brand kind of tripod head, and the two just don't mate terribly well.
Right.
So it's best, I mean, if you can get it on a demo or something and just, go to Eli's shop and try it on those legs just to make sure that head will actually work on that. I think that's probably your best bet.
Yeah,
The tied ends are different.
All the European heads are one of three different sizes. They're either
Right.
75 millimeters or 100 millimeters or 150 millimeters. And all the European fluid heads, Sackler, Cartoni, they all are interchangeable. They'll all fit on all that stuff. But O'Connor made a weird bowl long time ago. And that's the only thing. If you're buying something used that was an O'Connor, like an old O'Connor 50 head or something like that, you just have to double check that it would fit. But all the European stuff like Sackler or Cartoni or the Chinese knockoffs of both of those brands, those will fit on one of those three sizes, and they'll swap around anywhere.
Oh, that's interesting.
Those are cool tripods, with the flippy flappy red adjustable things. Yeah, those are really nice for moving fast.
I wasn't so sure when I first saw it. It looked kind of odd, and it seemed kind of toy-like. But the more I work with it, the nicer it seems.
Yeah.
Toy-like. You're thinking of the old Bolex metal automatic release tripods. Oh my God. John Else had a set of those.
Huh.
The bane of my existence.
But I think Dave is right, though, that they may theoretically be all the same, but it's possible for there to be little differences. Like I have a Sackler head, and I have a Cartoni 100 millimeter tripod, and it fits, but there's a difference in the length of the post that comes out of the tripod is a little bit different. And I had to, I just worked up a little, do-it-yourself attachment with a rubber washer I found God knows where. And
I think I'm becoming convinced. Actually, when I talked about Dave Jensen using it, he uses a different head in the Sackler 75 legs, but it wasn't second. So
yeah, my guess is it'll work. But you can return anything to B&H, so who cares?
It's a lot of trouble.
Don't more than 30 days. That's all. Check it out immediately. Don't wait 3 months.
Okay.
So I've got the Apple WWDC in a separate window here. It is Mac OS Big Sur. Is the next, if anybody cares.
Cool. One more thing I won't be installing on my computer.
Apple going their own way with the chips is just really sad. I mean, they gave up the they went to Intel years ago, so they didn't have to pay Qualcomm the royalty. Only the Qualcomm chip was a much better processor. And so we've been limping along with these Intel chips, and so now they're going to make their own. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, I will not be buying the first generation of those machines.
Right.
What'd you say the OS is called, Louis?
Big Sur.
Big Sur.
Yeah, and the next one will be Little Sur. So
is that definite that they said they're going to do that now?
yeah, I'm just watching the feed, the WWDC.
So you guys are skeptical that they'll be any good? Because I read
It'll
some
take a
other
little while to
stuff
get the bugs out.
that
perhaps.
the integration will be much better between different Apple models.
Well,
Because
especially between iOS and Mac. Yeah.
yeah, and that in the future, like your laptops will be able to be used as phones, basically, because it'll all. Of course, we're
Yeah.
sort of
They're moving towards that hybridization of everything. So they'll all be sort of running a very similar OS, and they'll all feel like each other.
I can't see this working really well. I don't know.
Actually, the thing that worries me is not so much that the chip won't work, but they'll get into a fight like Nvidia and Apple did.
Oh God, that's a mess.
I mean, that's just such a drag,
Yeah. I mean, my MacBook Pro is only 2014, and I get those messages all the time still. There's just no way to fix it.
Yeah, the software will no longer work with the Nvidia machines, with the Nvidia chips that Apple sold you.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of finger pointing going on there still.
So I went off to feed my cat. What are you guys talking about?
The new Mac OS announcements and the ARM chips for the new machines that sort of in their new direction.
We're all whinging about how the worms have all crawled into Apple. So yeah,
Oh,
we're whining.
Apple is going to be making their own chips in the future. Christina, that's what we're talking, instead of using Intel chips.
if something works, why,
Yeah, that's what I don't see what the big deal is, but
If it ain't broke, fix it till it is.
yeah, right. There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, Rod, is that the Trump rally behind you there?
I think I've been buzzed by TikTok.
that does look like the upper tier of the Trump rally. Where's your little hat?
I had sandwiches for 60,000, and it's like nobody. I don't know. It's pretty quiet here. So
Jason's joining us. Hey, Jason.
Morning, everybody.
Good to see you.
Hey,
How's it going?
good.
Good. Good to see your face.
Yeah, good to be seen.
Good to see you, Jason. I'm glad to see that you haven't been, your family hasn't thrown you out yet.
No, they haven't. I got a good solid tent just in case and a little bit of square grass in the back.
Okay.
Everybody had a good Father's Day?
Yeah.
Good.
Really nice.
I meant to come by your house, Lenny, and grab some apricots, but I was too busy pushing the kids into waves all day.
Well, if you come by tomorrow,
Uh-huh.
you can say hi to your surfing buddy.
Oh, yeah, Hippie Joe's going to be over there?
Yeah, of course he's going to be under the house,
Okay.
digging into the sewer line. But
Oh, boy.
Different kind of surfing.
Yeah,
yeah,
right on. What's new out there? Anybody working yet? Kind of, sort of, but not really.
Little
yeah,
bit.
I've been trying to get feedback from some of the people that have been doing, some jobs locally. There was Graphite did a shoot on Friday that I know several people worked on, and I've kind of put some feelers out to see how that turned out. They were making a big deal that there were only going to be 10 people on the crew. So I'm not sure how that worked. Yeah.
Yeah, everything I've done is two-man crew, three at most once they had the prompter.
I had about 3 or 4 weeks of work, but it was one man,
Oh, right.
myself and 4 cameras, and in the wilderness with your own food, your own shelter, and shooting 2 or 3 films for the state of California. And they have a sustainable program using this TDA derivative from used tires, but it was a big deal. I mean, because you have to. No hotels, no food.
Yeah.
You have to put yourself up. You have to feed yourself. I had 4 cameras, a drone, and some time-elapse, and a regular camera. just trying to capture the action as it went, because you can't recreate anything. And it's just yourself and a mask, and everything is live. And, I mean, you shoot it live, but it's not broadcast or anything. It's just, you collect all the footage, and then now I had about 4 weeks of that. Now I've got about 2 months of editing.
Wow.
One-man stuff is just exhausting.
Yeah.
Really exhausting.
Well, fortunately, you're young and you have a lot of energy, Tim.
How deep in the woods did you have to
I
go?
said no to that shoot on Friday, because they wanted me to work camera assistant, setting up monitors, and doing data transfer where I'd have to leave the set. And it's just, that seemed like a really bad way to conduct the set.
All for a DP rate?
No, we didn't even get as far as rate, but I assumed it was going to be just standard Bay Area first AC rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lost a client once when I was young, working a job where I was a camera assistant for a camera that was going up in a helicopter, a camera that was around, that was on the ground. This is film, and I was the grip, and it was just too much, man.
Hard to fly the helicopter when you're doing all that stuff, huh?
Exactly.
Wow.
They had a jam in a magazine.
So Lewis, how did your shoot go last week?
Let's see. I had 3 days last week. 2 days were exterior 2-man crew. Actually, we had a prompter on one day, but pretty well managed. A lot of hands off. One day was in a small insert studio with way too many people and no air circulation. And I've got to still got to write a letter to the executive producer on that and talk, debrief on that and figure out. I think it just nobody felt comfortable speaking up. By the time we realized what was happening, we were about, the interviewee was there and we were about to roll, and it was kind of momentum. In theory, we could have moved sound, prompter, and client into another room, but it was too late to do all that. We should have. We all wore our masks the entire time, and we wiped everything down constantly. But I felt with the circulation and the tightness of the room, it could have been a lot safer. But everything else has been really, I did an exterior shoot with Jim Iacona last week. It was hot, Santa Rosa on Thursday, I think it was. So it was like 102 degrees at one point. Outside, shooting on roofs at one point. Yeah. But otherwise it went well. Jim was real conscious about stopping down and saying, does everybody feel okay? Everybody comfortable with the way we're working? As Jim does. And I thought, a lot of dialogue going on about what, how we felt and whether we were using safe practices. So there's that. Haven't been on any big sets in a while. But some of that stuff I'm hearing on the NorCal board sounds a little scary. Some of those larger shoots with a lot of clients and a lot of posts.
Yeah, I had a brief text conversation with Jay Farrington, and they're just getting asked to do quite a bit on their end to prepare equipment for clients, which I thought was interesting. But even for small, several clients called and asked if their equipment packages are going to be supplied with disposable gloves.
Huh.
But several clients wanted written sanitizing protocols that Shader Camera's doing, and having it all in print and all that kind of stuff. But he did say that they kept all their staff on salary with benefits up till this point. So I don't know if anybody else has done that or not in the business.
He's one of the few companies in our business I've heard actually using the PPP the way it was intended. Yeah.
Yeah, he said they got funded apparently near the end of the first go round.
Yeah, that's great.
On Fresh Air on Friday, I think it was, or maybe it was earlier last week, but there was one of these experts, and I can't tell you who it was, but on coronavirus, and he said that they're coming to the conclusion, or he had already come to the conclusion, and I don't know whether he represented a large group or not, that surfaces were not important, that there really had not been any cases of transmission from surfaces. So that he said the only thing you have to worry about is person-to-person contact in rooms that don't have, where you're too close to each other and where there's no air circulation. Outdoors is not that dangerous, although you should still wear masks. But that the real danger was being inside. And the longer you were in that room, the worse it was, the more dangerous it was. Which, of course, in your situation, Lewis, even with masks, you got to start worrying about.
Right.
Lewis, what kind of mask are you wearing when you're on these jobs?
I've got a cloth mask and I've got an N95 filter in between the two layers of cloth.
Do you wear the same mask all day long, or do you like swap out? Or
I should swap. I've got one that I like really that's really comfortable on me, so I haven't been swapping it. When I get home, I've been throwing it in the UVC box. But my wife pointed out to me that I need to have a second mask that I can swap out. I made this the other day. I don't know if you saw that link from the NorCal board.
That doesn't look efficient, Lewis. I don't think that'll do it.
It's not very comfortable over my regular mask, but for the standard paper mask, it
just creates a tighter seal.
Exactly. It creates a seal all the way around. But
you find your glasses fogging up when you use that?
No, because it seals it all the way around. But the other thing I've been doing is using a little bit of Top Stick, the toupee tape on the top of my mask here.
Okay.
And that's been really helpful because that really keeps my glasses from fogging up, and it also gives you a really good seal here, so you're not constantly adjusting your mask because it's not pulling down from your nose. It sticks really well. And then
is that the N95 mask or the cloth mask that you're using the Top Stick on?
I've been doing it on the cloth mask, but I imagine it would work on any mask. So
the N95 mask now, I went to the grocery store last night and they were almost not going to let me in because there's a new thing about the N95 mask. We're supposed to
the ones with the vents, maybe.
Vent.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I took that aluminized silver duct tape. It's like real thin aluminum, and I've cut little squares out and taped over the exhaust valve on the N95 masks I have with the exhaust valve.
I don't know if I mentioned, I have a friend that does a lot of 3D printing. He's a real maker down in LA, and the one that people wear for a lot of biking activities and all that have the big valves on it. He's actually 3D printing replacement valves for those that you can put filters into so you can replace those valves to hold filters, or you can block them. And then he's made a version that actually has a cap that you can open up to stick a straw through.
Nice.
Well, the N95 also doesn't really give you quite enough oxygen, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I don't remember the percentage now, but I mean, if anybody has heart issues or whatever, you're not really supposed to use that mask because you're not getting the full amount of oxygen. And by the way, Lenny, if surfaces don't matter, do you think Fairfax Lumber will take back that gallon of isopropyl alcohol?
I think you'll have to talk to them about it.
Just kidding.
There's a company based out of Sausalito that's called Masktopia, and they're making reusable masks with N95 rated filters that you can put in them, and they're very comfortable and they arrive very quickly. And they're also size small, medium, or large. Oh. So I've been using that, and their masks, their filters come in packs of 3. So you can buy as many filters as you want, and you just wash the mask after you're done using it. I hand wash it just like in the sink with a little bit of detergent, but you can put it in the washing machine too.
That sounds great. I'm looking for.
Masktopia.com. I'm looking
Yeah,
at.
masktopia.com. They have all their information about where the masks are made and how they make them. And they have all the science behind their N95 filters, and they're based right out of Sausalito.
Yeah, it looks,
Wow.
yeah,
I put it in the
like their
chat.
designs.
What's the cost on those, Danielle?
The masks are $15, and I forget how much the packs of filters are. Maybe like 7, or I don't remember. Sorry.
Do they have nice designs?
Yeah,
I think they're just black.
they're black, but they've got a lot of different logos, it looks like, on them, and variations.
The link's in the chat.
Oh, there it is, yeah.
Yeah, they look, yeah, and you know, we got fire season coming up, so there you go.
Wow.
I'm waiting on delivery of a mask I found with a replaceable fill. It's a cloth mask, but the company makes them in reproduction of classic automobile upholstery interior. So I got one that's a plaid from the original Mark I Volkswagen GTI. So it has it's a Wolfsburg pattern mask. So they have a hound tooth and all. Yeah,
You get a little woozy breathing that new car smell all day.
that's right. A little gasoline that whiffs in.
we got vintage VW scent and.
What is that called?
It's a company. It's a website called Blip Shift. BLIP. They're an oddball outfit. They people submit designs, and they publish shirts and all manner of caps and things like that, and they're only available for like a week or 2 weeks. So they're constantly going through the designs. So it's a funny little automotive website, but they have a whole bunch of different masks, which they're very clever.
My daughter bought me a Larry David mask, little pictures of Larry David on it. And I get great responses from people. Apparently, they only make 2 masks. One of them, or at least 2 like that. One of them is Larry David, and the other one, oddly, is Oprah Winfrey.
I'm sure they have licenses to use those images from each of those people.
Yep.
So that'll last a while.
How about those plastic shields? Like Lenny, you have one. Have you ever used it?
You know, the problem with that plastic shield that you gave me is that it's too close to my face and it hits my nose and it doesn't go low enough. But a friend of mine who has a better one said that all I need to do, and I realize this anyway, is get a piece of probably some, well, like some thick rubber or foam or something, and
yeah,
something that you use to, I don't know why the word is escaping me.
Spacer.
What?
You need a spacer between your forehead.
Yeah, you need a spacer, and it would be the same kind of thing you use like on a door or something so that it closes.
Like weather stripping.
You can pick that up at a home improvement store. It comes in rolls, and it's squishy foam with adhesive back on it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the word I was trying to think of. And that will push it away further, and then it'll go down lower. I mean, when you've got a nose like mine, it just pushes it out. Actually, I think it would probably be so for anybody's nose, but.
So I mentioned my sister-in-law. She's a county health nurse up in Sonoma, in Santa Rosa, and she mentioned that the shields are actually really effective. And when we were talking about the possibility, with school coming back in the fall, that they may just have kids wear those. People talk about wearing that plus the face mask, but just having the shield, even though any droplets are still coming out the bottom, just the fact that you're stopping the spray is really.
Yeah, well, you're keeping it out of the air then.
Yeah.
Right, Dave Leonard is modeling the new design with the offset on the forehead.
Nice, Dave.
Notice you can see his face, but he can't see you.
Need a little LED eye light up there inside the rim of that.
So I saw that Tim Azaria has an entire what do they call it? The positive pressure system.
Yeah, I was just going to mention his. He figured out how to put headphones inside it and everything, and it vents down its back with a hose.
That seems like quite the contraption, but I guess he said that he was able to loft people on set because he was the only person that was totally protected.
Looking like Matt Damon in The Martian, but it
Yeah.
works.
I don't know. It recalls the scenes from Alien with the guys walking around on the abandoned planet. So.
So I'll get you some weather stripping. How's that?
Yeah.
You
Do
know
you
what I
find-
use that stuff for, so I don't think you should.
What's that?
Obscure reference. But I do like those face shields, without that problem, because you can eat and drink and talk and communicate to other people. And you've got a solid shield between you and the outside world. So
I'll be back.
Who's
what
okay.
to do?
I'm going to mute him. Yeah.
When are you guys going to talk about money?
I'm ready. I got a money question. If anybody's ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm thinking about taking the EIDL after all, but it's a little hard for me to find information on it. Does anybody know much about it? Like, are there limitations to how often you can pay yourself or how much you can pay yourself? That's one question. Another question is, I keep getting these notes that say, if I don't take it right away, it's going to go away. And then somebody else, I think here, said I've got until August. And then the third question would be, there's this thing where if you take more than 25,000, because
Right.
they give you, I got way more than I got for the PPP for it. I got, PPP gave me 5,000 and EIDL gave me 33. I don't quite understand that, but I think it's because the PPP based it actually on my
Actual income.
yeah, they based it even on less than my actual income. They based it on my reported income.
Right. Yeah, that's what they
Yeah, from my Schedule C. Whereas for the EIDL, first of all, you just estimated, and secondly, they asked you for your gross wages, which
Yeah.
for us is a lot more. I even subtracted my most obvious, like if I was paid a certain amount and some of it went to somebody else, I subtracted that anyway. But still, I didn't take any of my expenses for business or anything off it. So
Well, I see that Jim Iacona's here. Jim, I don't know if you can talk, but I know he was able to get some of those questions answered at some point.
Oh, Jim, are you there? Well, he's muted at the moment.
Here he comes. See if your mic works today.
There we go. So yeah, I got approved way too easily for one of those loans, but I did talk to the guy that did the approval. So what he told me was that
Which one was this first?
EIDL.
Okay.
What he told me was that all of the verbiage on the loan application is because they typically, this is a small business association, they typically go in after a disaster, like a tornado or a hurricane or a flood, and they try and keep businesses going so they can rebuild. So he said one thing they try to guard against is people taking the loan and then selling all of their equipment and machinery and going out of business. But now they've got the loan. So a lot of stuff says like, oh, if you make any sales of equipment, you need to get the SBA's approval. Or there's a whole lot of stuff. I think it's if the loan's more than 25,000. There are a whole lot of restrictions. But this is what he also told me was, because typically we do a few hundred or maybe a few thousand of these loans after a disaster. Because we've got 5.5 million applications right now. Because so I can't say that you will never get audited, but he goes, chances are it's really only going to be the most egregious misuses of the loan that anyone's ever going to check on. So it seems like this is like a lot of that stuff you're reading that sounds really restrictive. He said, as long as you stay in business, you keep paying taxes, you can pretty much do what you want with the money.
Wow.
That's kind of unofficial, right? Because he was just kind of leveling with me, kind of like, hey, we're overwhelmed. So chances are we're not going to go into minutia on every loan on this. It just can't happen.
Well, that's great.
What about having both loans, PPP and EIDL? I thought you couldn't do that.
You can. You just have to, if you get the PPP, you have to include the grant amount from your EIDL as part of your income. So that's an.
But if it's already happened, let's say you've already gotten the PPP.
Mm-hmm. If you've already got, I don't know what, after the fact, I'm in sort of the same boat. I never got the EIDL grant because I screwed up my account number. And I'm trying to fix that right now. So I know if you try to get PPP forgiveness and you've taken the EIDL grant, you have to include that. There's a question,
right?
An item on that forgiveness form that asks how much you took, but that doesn't apply to the loan. That's just the grant portion.
Which would only be, if you have one employee, it would be $1,000, right?
Right. Yeah. So I'm trying to get that straightened out. I called the SBA on Saturday morning and gave them the correct account numbers, and it still isn't updated to fix it. But
the way I had planned to do it was to take, I figured I would first go through, unemployment until they stopped the 600. Then I would use the PPP, and then I would go to the EIDL for my salary.
Right.
But would the PPP still be available if I already had taken because you have to take the EIDL and put it in the bank first?
Yeah, I don't think one negates the other. I don't think they care. Like I said, the only thing I've seen about that interaction is what you do with the grant portion of it.
And there's greater reporting if you take over 25?
In theory. But in actuality, likely not in this particular case.
Well, don't they ask you to have to fill out don't you have to fill out a bunch of stuff for this thing?
I haven't gone all the way through the acceptance yet. I'm waiting. I believe from what I read, it was 60 days that you have to accept the loan from the date of approval. So in my case, that would be like the end of July. And since there's no work right now, I'm thinking I'm just going to wait until the last, week to actually accept the loan.
Well, that's good to hear. Are you getting these things in the mail that are constantly telling you got to take it right away, otherwise it's going to go away?
It doesn't say right away, but it does say you need to accept it.
Yeah.
But if you go there, just start going to there's a DocuSign. And
right.
Go there, start going down the DocuSign, and it'll have all of the.
Yeah, all the terms are there.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I did do is I went far enough to accept the whole thing, the full amount instead of 25. I don't know if I can change that and just take 25 instead of the full 30.
Yeah, it's a slider. You can adjust how much you want.
But I already hit 33, and I pressed the button for that.
Yeah, so this is the next step, Louis.
Okay.
The slider is the first step, and then
before the actual application process.
That's before you actually get approved, and then once you get approved, then it's a DocuSign.
But I still have 60 days after going through what I did.
I believe it's 60 days after you get the notice that you are approved, from the date of approval.
I'll have to go back through my stuff again. How did you find the SBA guy?
It was, I just got, somebody started emailing me when I decided I was going to pursue this. And it was a guy, and then he's asking me, is this on a Sunday? And the guy's asking me for a copy of my passport. And I'm like, okay, is this guy legit? So I actually called the SBA and said, okay, there's a guy at this email address He's asking me for a copy of my passport. Is this real? And they said, yeah, that's a real address. So I completed it, and the guy had all contact info on the emails that he was sending. So a couple days later, I called him. And that's when I got that additional information. It's kind of off the record information, right? Because it was in a phone call.
Right. They're a lot easier to get on the phone than EDD is.
Yeah, so I'll do that. I'll call SBA and talk to them.
I called them on Saturday morning, and I got through in about 20 minutes, and then they put me on hold for another 20 minutes to get a supervisor. But
That's nothing.
It's not like EDD where you get disconnected 20 times before you get through and then wait for hours.
So
Hey, Lenny,
you're saying that this is coming through the SBA directly? It's not going through a particular bank like
Correct.
Bovine or
Yeah, the EIDL comes directly from the SBA. Oh, as far as I know, actually, I didn't get that far. So it looks like it's coming directly from the SBA, whereas the PPP, you've got to start with a bank.
It must go through a bank though, no?
It must, yeah.
They ask for your bank account. And I don't know if you haven't already gotten the $1,000, Christina?
No, I just did the PPP. And I, didn't say that I was doing the EIDL because I thought it was just, they canceled each other out. So I didn't even try. But you're making me interested.
Well, it's a loan. It's not,
Right.
$1,000 is a grant and the rest is a loan. It's a 30-year loan.
3.5%.
3.75.
Oh, 3.75, right.
Yeah, but that's fine with me, actually. The loan works perfectly for me.
Yeah, I mean, the way I saw it, the PPP was enough to get me through a few months. I mean, two months to be exact, by design. And then after that, I was hoping things would be settled. But if they're not, then it seems like the EIDL is the next solution, right?
Yeah.
Solution. Hey, one other thing for you, Lenny, is if you had an individual person that you were emailing with to get your approval, I would call that person.
I didn't. I just filled out that, that thing online. I have no idea who it was.
There was no back and forth in terms of somebody asking you for additional info?
Nope.
Okay.
No, I just filled it out and that was that. I was kind of shocked, to tell you the truth, that suddenly they didn't.
It was way too easy.
They didn't ask for any proof or anything, and all of a sudden, okay, 33 grand, here you go.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I discovered the way to get through to somebody, and that is to get up at 5 a.m. and which I did because my PPP loan was completely stuck. And I talked to somebody on the phone and boom, within days, it just went through.
You just jiggled
I
it.
wonder if with the
It's on the East
EIDL.
Coast,
Yeah.
8 o'clock on the East Coast. So that's the great secret.
And so the other stuff I sent out was that thing from Forbes this week about the PPP sounding like, for sole proprietors anyway, it was most likely going to be 100% forgiven, which is good news. Trying to read through that, it sounds like what they're saying is if you take the 28 weeks or 24 weeks, I don't remember. If you take that option as opposed to the 8-week option, and you can do that retroactively, then the math works out that it's all forgiven. And I don't know exactly how it's going to work. My tax person says she's doing a couple webinars this week, and she'll get back to us at the end of the month. But nobody's accepting forgiveness applications at this point yet, anyway. But she's said all along she thinks it's all going to be forgiven.
I think so too.
Jason, you're muted, Jason. Hang on.
I noticed that a lot of I got a bunch of emails from my bank talking about the paperwork for the forgiveness, but then there was no paperwork attached to it. So I guess
there was an application a little while ago that was like a preliminary application, but now they've changed the guidance again. So they haven't. Most banks haven't opened up portals to be able to apply for forgiveness yet.
Okay.
Because the SBA keeps changing the terms, and the banks are all waiting for guidance.
Copy that.
And on the SBA thing, I mean, if you start making money, or the PPP for that matter, they're not going to double check. No. It doesn't matter.
I don't think that matters at all either.
I mean, SBA loan, they're hoping you make money. That's why they're giving you the money, is to keep you in business.
That's right.
So
Yeah,
I like that attitude.
this isn't the same as unemployment at all. They don't care whether you're working or not. They're just trying to give you help.
Thank God for Trump.
And now the PPP is different than the disaster loan, right?
Yes, yeah. That the disaster loan is the EIDL. That's not forgiven. That's 3.75 for 30 years. That's.
And how do they calculate the amount? Is that based off of just what you ask for, or is it connected to your earnings?
It's connected to your gross earnings. It sounds like.
Okay.
Whereas the PPP is connected to your net earnings.
Yeah, that's your gross, not your net. And at least when I filled it out, it was like they didn't ask for proof. I don't know if that's different in Jim's case.
I think they get it off your tax return.
Yeah, they can if they can get the tax return, so they can check it.
Yeah, I think I had to give them my tax return as one of those documents that was needed for it.
I don't recall
the first Schedule C were the two things I had to give them.
On the
Is that
EIDL?
your EIDL, Jack?
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, the EIDL.
I'm thinking
Maybe
they
I did
have
that
access
early.
anyway. Whether you give it to them or not, they have access.
Little brother?
So what's her favorite bank? Bank of America, West America, Wells Fargo?
I've been happy with Redwood Credit.
Redwood Credit. That's if have been part of their club.
I had a vehicle loan through them. That was my only connection to them. They had me open a business account.
I have a
playing music?
line with them. No.
Where's that coming from?
It has to be current, though. In other words, like as of February of this year, I had a automobile loan in the past, and I'm in their system, but they said no.
They said no to you?
Yeah, they made the stipulation that you had to be current.
Ah.
Just FYI.
Which bank was that?
That was Redwood Credit Union.
Really? Because I had a current but not a business account, and they had me open a business account. But I had a current vehicle loan as a personal account. But mine
wasn't current, so.
Yeah, I got the sense I was one of the first test cases because I got it so early.
Louis, do you have a Redwood Credit in Novato kind of near you?
Yeah, but I never had to. It was all done over the phone. There's one downtown Novato. I thought at one point they said I was going to have to go in there and sign papers, and I never did. And then they needed me to transfer some money around to open the account, and I was able to do that all online. The only thing that cost me was in order to get the money from Redwood Credit to Wells Fargo, I had to do a wire transfer, and that ended up costing me, I think it was $15 on their end and $30 on the Wells Fargo end, just to move the money between banks. Because if it had been if it had been under, I don't remember what the amount was, under 5,000, I could have done it for free. But
yeah, I've had to do wire transfers at Wells Fargo before, and it usually is at least $30 on each end with it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I just figured it was the cost of the loan.
In answer to somebody's question about what banks are cool besides the Redwood Credit Union, I'm at B of A, and they basically just kind of shined me on. They were dealing with bigger fish for a long time, and then I went through Blue Vine, and that was excellent. Really, they have a smoother system. It's kind of young, and it did get a little hung up, but then once I cleared that up, it was great.
I think that Scott Stender and Eli both went through Blue Note also. I don't think anybody ever got anything from Wells Fargo, but I seem to remember talking to somebody within the last couple of weeks that they were looking like they were going to get one through Wells Fargo.
I stopped talking to Wells Fargo early on after they basically just stonewalled and said they weren't doing anything. So
that was my sense too. I think it might have been Blake I was talking to last week. that mentioned he was still in discussions with him.
But they opened a credit card account for you, Dave, without you knowing.
Right. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, you have two more. You have two more car insurance accounts open now too. So
I know, and I have a mortgage for a property I don't even own. It's amazing.
Hey, one thing I spent a little time on, Kale, after you mentioned talking about the accuracy of the testing, the COVID testing. So I found this thing that was very interesting because I've been confused about the antibody test. And because I keep hearing mixed things that like they're 90-something% accurate. And then there's all this other stuff. Oh no, they're only half, like 50% accurate. I'm like, that's a big swing. So I looked at it and okay, this is what I found. So there's a difference between test accuracy and positive predictive value, which is a term that I would hear, but I didn't really pay attention to. So, okay, see if you follow along with this, because I wrote this down. I'm just going to read it. I pulled this off of some website. So if 5% of the population has COVID and a test is 95% accurate, okay, so the test is 95% accurate. So if an individual gets the test, 95% chance you're going to find out the right answer. But if you look at the bigger picture, if you test 100 people and only 5% of the population has it, so in theory, 5 of those people should have it. So probably likely you're going to come up with all 5 because 95% of 5 is 4.75. So likely you'll come up with all 5. The problem is there's so many people that don't have it. It's a matter of numbers. So 95% of 95 people, that would be 90.25, which means that 4 or 5 false positives. So if you have, let's say you have 4 false positives. So let's say you got all 5 of the 5 people that had it, but you have 4 false positives. So that's 9 people who test positive. And of those 9, only 5 of them actually have the virus. So that means the test, even though the test is 95% accurate, it has a predictive value of 55.6%. You following along?
Now my brain hurts.
The problem is so many people don't have it, right? Like let's say 1 person in the entire world has the test. Has the virus. And the test is 99.99999% accurate. You'll probably find that 1 person. But because there are so many people that don't have it and the number is so big, you're going to get a whole bunch of false positives because there are, what, 6 billion people now? However many.
Right, so it's a matter of scale.
Yes, exactly. If everybody had it, then if every single person had the virus, then a test that's 95% accurate would be 95% predictive as well. So the problem is that it's the difference between the large group of people that don't have the virus and the small group of people that do have the virus.
So the gist of it is that we shouldn't be alarmed by that number.
Correct. In terms of positive predictive value, we shouldn't be alarmed by that number. Here's one other thing too. Different tests have different percentages of accuracy. There's a company called Celex that has a lateral flow rapid test. It's 95% accurate. Roche has something called an Alexis test. That's 99% accurate. Abbott has a test called Architecture, and that's 99.8% accurate. So it's always going to be 99.8% accurate, but you're still going to come up with a whole bunch of false positives because the group is so big that doesn't have it, and the group is small that does have it.
Got it. That makes sense.
Well,
Jim?
if they retest all the false positives,
Yes.
that should come out.
Exactly. If you do a second test, then you're going to be really accurate because 2 false positives, highly unlikely.
So does that mean though that if you get a positive, that now you're one of the 10 people who got the positive, and so you're only 50% sure that that positive is accurate?
No, you individually are 95% sure that that is accurate. But of the group, you can only be 50% of that group it's accurate.
I'm gonna have to think about that while taking a shower.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be interesting because I've started reading because of the way film productions are starting to try to ramp up, especially big productions. There are private groups that are starting to do mobile testing labs. And there's one in the Bay Area that's been advertising, or not, but telling people, promoting that they have a blood test that gives results within like 15 minutes or something like
I was going to ask about that. I saw that on the NorCal board. Yeah.
that. Yeah. So.
And it was antibody and presence of the virus, right?
I think it's just virus testing. So the concept is, you know, the motorhome pulls up, everybody goes through, you know, you have a 30-minute pre-call on your shoot. They, you know, 50 people go through and get testing, department by department or however they do it. And then everybody that, you know, has a green check mark goes onto the set and works the day or however they arrange it. But it's like, okay, how accurate is that test? It's just like what Jim's saying, you know, what happens if 3 people out of a 50-person or a 75-person crew test positive? You know, what are the options there? So I think it's going to get real complicated pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think that's the future, the near future of work, is that everybody's just going to get tested all the time. I mean, how do you get things back to any semblance of normal?
Well, my wife started today back at where she works at Sonoma County Public Library, and the library buildings have been closed now for, you know, 2.5 months. They're starting to bring staff back in split groups. There's A groups and B groups at each location, and the 2 groups don't interchange. So there's a B group schedule and an A group schedule. But the libraries are still not open to the public. They're working on how to take books back, what to do with the books, you know, how to make things available, hard copy available to the public again. But they're not testing anybody. The protocol is an elaborate self-check form. So everybody's required to take their temperature every day, every morning before work, and then every day to fill out this form. So it's all self-reporting. I had a root canal last week, so my endodontist finally opened up about 2 weeks ago to start taking patients again, and it was exactly the same thing. I had to self-report when I showed up for the procedure. It was like, well, you know, I really needed to have the root canal. I could have bullshit on the form,
yeah,
and you know, who's to know unless everybody comes down with COVID-19.
How does that work if you're asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic?
It doesn't.
You know, you're supposed to self-report. You know, do you have a temperature or do you have a cough? You know, blah, blah, blah. You fill the form out. So it's all based on self-reporting until this mobile testing thing starts to happen.
You know, it occurs to me that once you have enough tests, shouldn't it just be you go in, you get 2 tests right away? You know, they just 2 swabs, 2 tests, and that increases the reliability of the test enormously. You could do 3 tests for God's sake.
Well, somebody has to pay for them.
Make it a pretty foolproof system.
Yeah, somebody has to pony up the money for the tests, and that's a problem right now.
Paying for them, and also time, because I think each test takes a certain amount of time. So if you triple that, Like, you know,
Well,
whoever
yeah,
the
but
last
I mean,
person
even
is.
doing two tests.
Yeah, but the last person in to get tested,
Liability of
they'll
the
get their
test.
results at the end of the day.
Well, some of these tests are 15 minutes.
Well, times
Even
how many employees?
Well, you know, what does it take to have a system so that we can go back to work in this country? That seems minor. But if you had a reliable test, you'd be automatically double the reliability of the test would be enormous, I think, and give people a lot more, you know, sense of reliability on this stuff.
The thing that's going to be interesting is like the mobile testing and on-site testing and stuff like that. You know, there's nobody in charge right now. What sort of rules and regulations are they going to operate under? It's just like, you know, walking onto a set. Well, okay, there's white papers and there's protocols and all that, but when it, you know, it all boils down to there's no OSHA that's overseeing what you're really required to do, and with no ramifications for not doing it. So it looks like the whole testing protocol is going to be the same way. I mean, who's going to be in charge?
There are some
what-
companies that you can hire for sets that manage that. I mean, there are companies that would come on and manage the testing and manage the sanitization and manage, you know, the zones, however the set is being run in terms of health and safety.
Right, but it's kind of the wild, wild west right now that they're all, everybody, those companies are managing themselves. There's no official.
Well, look
It's
at
not
the
like
guidance.
it's not like Cal OSHA or anything like that, where there's an overseeing regulatory vehicle. That
So much of what we're getting is all anecdotal. I mean, look at our talk about surfaces. It's all, oh, I heard this and I heard that. If we just had one statement from the CDC saying this is how this thing is transmitted on surfaces, and we're not getting that, or how it's not.
But the CDC has released how to clean surfaces.
Well, it's how to clean, but not how critical it is and how long. I mean,
Right,
earlier on we were getting a lot.
You know, and there's also conflicting information and, you know, lack of responsibility, certainly on a federal level, that it just the target keeps moving.
And that seems so relative to the extent of how sick is someone that coughs on any given surface or not, and how quick after they cough on it do you touch it. I don't know if you could say with a certainty that surfaces don't transmit it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't know whether he was talking about surfaces where people coughed on it and then you picked it up.
Right. I mean, we've had guidance as to what surfaces it lives on longer, but not what the chances of if you're exposed to these surfaces.
So I guess Crafty's out for a while. Shit.
Right.
And even touching a surface doesn't guarantee by any means that you're going to get it. You know, these meatpacking plants went through comprehensive facility sanitization, but it's all the people breathing and coughing on each other that transmits it, not touching a surface.
Close proximity, right?
Hey, Ron,
And then there's, you know, the whole thing about like possibly certain blood types are more susceptible. There's that whole thing. Speaking real quick there, hi Jason. I had to do Crafty recently for a shoot, and it was, you know, everything. It felt so wasteful and so much garbage, but everything in its own individual little packages, right?
Dixie cup sealed packages?
Oh no, closed sealed packages. So everything, you know, fun size, that kind of stuff, and then, you know, and then just like wipes and spray bottles and all that kind of stuff. And everybody take their little snacks and go to their little corner and peel up their mask, and, you know.
Rod, I wonder whether those UV boxes might be something that the library could use.
They're that only that would only work for the outside of anything.
Right. You couldn't open every page.
Yeah, you can't open every page and whatnot. And plus, almost everything over the long term is degrades the materials. So, you know, you have that.
I guess if you just wait 4 days or something, then that's okay too.
That's what the current fantasy is that as they start, so just as an example, the library system has not been taking books back from patrons for 2.5 months. So all the books are still out there. So they're trying to work protocol out where those books come back and are quarantined for 10 days or ever what the boffins have figured out. They have to sit around until they're able to go back into circulation again.
Yeah, I have 3 books. I think I own them now.
So Marin County's gotten rid of all of their late fees altogether. They did that a while before.
Most public libraries don't have fines anymore. That's started to go away about 5 or 6 years ago. So it's really rare to find a public library that has fines anymore.
Did anybody notice in the Sunday paper there was an article by Carolyn Stade about people whose mortgages, if you've had your mortgage furloughed, or I forget what the word is, that you should really be watching your very carefully. You should be watching your credit reports, just to make sure that somebody hasn't screwed up and sent in the fact that you're delinquent. Like my mortgage is on forbearance until September, but I get these letters from my mortgage company telling me that I'm delinquent.
Right.
And and they sound really frightening. And then I get back in touch with the mortgage company and they say, oh, just ignore that. Don't worry. That's just sent out by a computer. But they're not sending, you'd think they could send another letter to you that says, ignore yesterday's letter, but they don't send anything.
So a little bit about that. Wells Fargo, I got the same thing from them, but in fine print on that same statement that said I was overdue, it said, if you're currently in a forbearance situation, disregard this notice. But I had to read on after I panicked.
I got this package of like page after page after page about my delinquency. And originally when I got the forbearance, it was a phone call. There were no papers exchanged or anything. So I called them up and said, please send me something that says that I've got forbearance, because I don't want to just end up saying, well, the phone call told me that I was okay.
Yeah. So interestingly, I've been worried about this, but I got a letter from Wells Fargo last week saying we're going to be in touch soon to figure out how you want to deal with, or how we want to deal with the forbearance situation, if you need to continue it, or how we're going to update things and make sure you're current. And so 2 days ago, they sent me an email saying, go to this link to figure this out. And I was right off the bat, I was given an option to pay, and I only took 2 months off. I was given the option to pay the due amount over the next 6 months as part of my regular mortgage payments, which would have put my mortgage payments up over $1,000 a month more than I'm used to paying. And if there was a yes, no, do you want to take this plan? And I said no. And then it said, okay, would you rather we just take these 2 payments and put them in a non-interest earning, it wouldn't be an account because that money doesn't exist, but set this aside and tack it onto the end of your mortgage with no interest attached. And I said, yeah. And they said, okay, we'll let you know. So I'm waiting to hear back for sure if they're going to do that. That's what I was hoping all along. I'd rather just add 2 months to my 30-year mortgage, but especially if there are no repercussions. But they also gave me the option to extend for another 6 months if I needed to.
Oh, so that would be 8 months altogether?
For me, it would have been 8. For most people, it would be 9 because we didn't take the first month.
Wow.
But I kind of figured I don't want to keep pushing this off. I might as well start paying the mortgage again. Figure I got 2 months to recover a little bit and go from there. But there was a big question of whether they were going to give me that option. A lot of people had that question whether they would give us that option, or whether they were just going to require all that money paid in one payment or over 6 months or whatever.
Yeah, my lender told me verbally that I would have that option, but I've never seen anything written.
Right, I had the same thing, and I was worried that it could be more. They could back off on that.
Yeah, I don't really care how long they tack it on for. But I guess that also depends how close you are to paying off your mortgage. I had a refinance when I got divorced, so I'm only 5 years into a mortgage.
Right.
So they can tack it on. I don't care. Deal with it when I sell the house someday.
So
Or give it to
before I forget, George Rosenfeld wanted me to read a thank you. See if I can find it here. He said he might be in later today, but he was too embarrassed for me to read it while he was in the room. But he said he wants to thank all his friends at the Java Club and the production community for coming through for me on my hearing aid campaign. Thanks to you, the goal was reached. I'll be ordering my new hearing aids very shortly, and may your generosity return to you 1,000-fold, George. No. I'm sorry I didn't send that out earlier, but it definitely put him over the top.
Well, that put a smile on our faces.
Yeah.
I'd hate for George's marriage to fall apart because he couldn't hear his wife yelling at him. George, take out the garbage, for God's sake.
And then Richard Neal just sent me an email. He can't be with us, but wants to know if there's a general consensus that shooting safely in these pandemic times with a 3 to 4 person crew adds about 25 to 35% time to a typical production day.
With a 3 or 4 person crew.
Yeah, I would say that's a little. With a small crew, I would say it maybe adds 15%. With a big crew, I would imagine it adds closer to 25 to 30.
Does he mean your talent as well, or does he mean just your crew? Because I think that has to be answered.
Question.
It also depends upon whether they're making people, are you doing without some people? So are you doubling a person's jobs?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I would say that in that respect, we're doing things with a crew half the size that we're used to. Some of these projects anyway.
I found on the jobs that I've done so far that it added, our jobs have taken a lot more time. And, what might have been a 1-day shoot turned into a 3-day shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing I just did there with Jim, the wrapping it out took a really long time. Setting up did also, but it took a lot of time. So, because basically, we couldn't really help each other. I didn't want to have people coiling my cables. I didn't want to be helping them with their cables. So there's a lot of stuff that didn't happen that would normally happen very quickly. So, I don't know. I think it also depends on what his way of working this out is. Until he's actually done something, he probably won't be able to tell how long it's going to add to it. Until you get into it, then you start understanding, the things that add to the time there. So he can start with that estimate, and he can tell us what he thinks after he's done his job.
I think whether you're interior or exterior has a lot to do with it too.
Yes, absolutely. We were outdoors, and it still took that much longer.
Yeah. I'd say about 75% of the work I've done has been outside.
Yeah, it seems like whatever protocols you have in place for that particular shoot is going to affect that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a moving target. So,
and I have yet to be on a set with actual protocols in place that weren't being managed by us. In other words, I've yet to be on a set where somebody was in charge of safety.
Yeah, I really. You get into 3 and 4 people there, and you're starting to have somebody like that, because otherwise, you're going to definitely start breaking boundaries.
Well, like I said, I was talking earlier about this set I did on an insert stage at Kaiser last week, where nobody was in charge of that, and I felt like we had momentum, and by the time we realized it, we had 6 people in a tiny room and no airflow, and it was too late to do anything about it, and nobody spoke up.
Exactly. So I don't know how do we get that? Is this something where we have to get somebody like Gavin Newsom to say, hey, you want to do production? If you have a crew if you're involving more than 4 people, you have to have somebody hired on as this person, because otherwise, who's going to do it? Because producers don't want to take on that extra cost. The client's not going to want to do it, but if they're forced to do it because this is like a new regulation, then maybe that's the way it has to happen. Because, yeah, I haven't seen anything where everybody's talking about we want to have these things, but I haven't seen that happen yet. And I think that that's an important thing. If we really, I mean, if this is the situation, it looks to me like, yeah, we're not done with the first wave here. So, you know, that seems like it's something that probably has to be in place until we figure this out.
Has anybody seen those California guidelines that Newsom's released? I've seen plenty of stories that he was releasing them, but I still haven't actually found the guidelines that were released by the state.
I don't know if Newsom's released his guidelines yet. I've seen several sets of other guidelines that have been released, but I haven't seen Newsom.
Well, that's the thing. The story that he was releasing, especially last week, several people said that they were released, but those stories didn't include the actual guidelines, and I have not been able to find them. So that is confusing to me. The other thing I'll say is I did talk to a producer that was on a fairly big job maybe 2 weeks ago now, and it was an LA production company, and it was pretty much a free-for-all. They did not have anybody that was a COVID cop. The AD was supposed to be that person, but of course the AD was busy doing their own thing, and it kind of deteriorated. I mean, the whole shooting situation sort of deteriorated as the job went on because there was nobody minding the stores. So the producer said, actually his production manager, he said the next time a job like that comes down the pike, they're just going to have to decide that there is one person who can tell anybody on the set, back off, wear a mask, whatever, and that person's the captain of the ship. And everybody's going to have to sign off on that, including the executive producers and the clients, and they're going to have to pay for it, especially on a bigger show. And this is a crew of at least 15 or 20 people.
That's what I'm finding confusing, though, because if you read the guidelines, apparently only crews of 12 is what has been approved so far.
Oh yeah, there was a big job quite a while ago that had a crew of 25 or 30 and a ton of clients, and it was like that clearly was not approved by anybody, but the job happened anyway.
Actually, this is really interesting and necessary to sort of break it down into practical situations. I think actually a good way to start getting some information out there is, and maybe an article, Lenny, in the Chronicle, then you follow that up and send that to Newsom. In other words, an article specific to the industry would be a really good thing to do.
The governor's office has gotten plenty of white papers and guidelines from production groups and unions and things, but I still haven't found the state issued guidelines if they've actually been released.
If you go to that site that I think it was you, Kayla, just popped it up there, the COVID-19 CA.gov. Is that the one you did? I just went there. I'm looking at it now, and it has this part that's one of the feature services and information industry guidance.
Yeah.
And there's industries, and you go down to the music, film, and TV production.
Oh,
see that.
And it doesn't anything really. It just sends you off back to statewide industry guidance to reduce risk.
It's just a token. Yeah, you guys need to follow these instructions too. But it does. Music, film, and TV production are mentioned as part of that, but it's not very specific.
Sends you back to some other.
Yeah, it's mentioned, but it's just a loop. Back to other stuff. I've read all of the guidelines that are out so far, and I've also read guidelines that have been put forth based on some of the companies that you can hire, some of the film and television like sanitization companies out of LA or other locations that have their own guidelines based on zone systems on sets. And they all have a lot of things in common, and of course they all are also a little bit different. And I think that each set is going to be a little bit different based on how big it is and whether it's indoors or outdoors and whether it's a film or a corporate interview or something else. But so far, like was mentioned, Newsom hasn't released anything from
industry specific.
Yeah, industry specific. The SF Film Commission has released that it's a maximum of 12 people, which we already know hasn't been necessarily adhered to. But it's really hard when you can only have 12 people or less, to then have one of those positions be taken by somebody who is a safety supervisor, but that is also turning out that it might be necessary, because it's hard when you have people already juggling multiple positions to then also have to remember to be safety as well.
I think the COVID safety officer is not included in that crew number, though.
Right. You know what? I think that this just points to that we just need to have something. Forget about like coming up with your guidelines. You have to have a person who's the safety person, and you have a meeting before your production that you talk about what the guidelines you're going to try to follow. And this person is going to watch and make sure he doesn't see anything unsafe, because otherwise there's no way to put out guidelines that are going to fit every situation, just like you're pointing out. There's just no way. So you need to have everything has got to be on a case-by-case thing. And that means you have somebody who's the point person, and then the production has to talk about how they're going to approach this stuff with this person. Maybe you have like a meeting like we're having right now. We talk about, okay, we got 6 scenes we got to do. Here's what we want to do. How do you think you want to do this in a safe way? Maybe it's like, and then maybe what they could do is companies that are doing productions there, maybe they can get a tax break as part of the thing. If they bring on one of these COVID-19 police officers, then they get to have a tax break of some sort, or some kind of like benefit that makes it so that it's not such a burden to actually bring somebody in to make it so they can actually work.
Make it like Chevron, where there's one person that can call bullshit on anything that's untowards happening on set.
Stop work order.
This could be a career opportunity, actually, for someone to just create a business where
I'll be a COVID cop.
The other thing to keep in mind, though, is that currently the CDC and OSHA and NIH, they don't offer any certification courses in COVID safety. I contacted all of them directly and asked that question. So any certifications that you see out there are just companies that are, you know, putting out questionnaires that you can answer to get a certification, but nothing is actually gone through the CDC or OSHA or any of those valid organizations that you can get a certification saying that you understand COVID safety. That doesn't exist.
So there are like bullshit companies that will give you bullshit certification?
Yeah.
That's all you need.
That's shocking.
Yeah. The CDC and OSHA do not have any. OSHA offers a PPE safety course, but none of them offer, and they offer a pandemic safety course, but it doesn't specifically cover COVID. And the CDC does not currently have a COVID-19 like safety course. So there are companies out there that offer like sanitization services and things, and they're offering procedures and protocols, but you know, having like a COVID certified person is, I don't want to say arbitrary is not the right word, but there is no COVID like certification that exists.
There's your opportunity, Jason. You can start offering COVID certifications.
Probably the best people to get that kind of certification would be the set medics. They're the first line person I would think of that would be the ones to get that. And then you have a set medic.
Right.
I mean, and saying that, I went online and I got 2 certifications for COVID awareness, and I took tests and I read literature and all of that, but I say that fully knowing that they are sort of not legitimate.
So have you posted any ads for yourself as a COVID safety person?
I posted both my certifications to Instagram on my Insta page.
Now, let me ask you, how much did it cost you to get quote unquote certified?
Some places, if you go online, there are scammers out there offering certifications in COVID-19 safety for $250. I found 2 places that did it for free, so I took the free ones.
Okay.
But there are places that are offering classes for $250. But like I said, I contacted the CDC and OSHA, and I got my responses that there's nothing that they're offering that's like through them.
So now let me ask you another question about that. Did you feel like either of those things were useful?
I mean, they give you facts. You know, they give you the symptoms. They give you statistics. I mean, they a lot of the information I already knew. But to their credit, they don't give you the certificates if you don't get above like an 85% on their tests. So, I mean, that's one good thing, I guess. They give you all the information and then you have to take a test afterwards.
COVID awareness certificate. Yes, I know that COVID exists.
Yeah.
That's probably about as far as you can say that. The other part of it becomes interesting is the whole thing about liability on this. If you have somebody who's taking on that responsibility, are they setting themselves up for an interesting lawsuit? I mean, maybe we should do what Trump did. You won't have so many people show up, but you have everybody sign off that you can't be sued.
Well, a lot of productions are having people sign waivers, right?
I haven't had one yet, but
I haven't either.
I created a COVID-19 personal liability responsibility form that I sent out before my shoot. It's a form on Google, and it's just something that people fill out that says, like, have I been exposed to anybody who has COVID in the last 14 days? Do I have any of these symptoms? And they kind of go through and click, fill out the form before each shoot day, which is just, you know, their own personal responsibility admissions.
Is that something that that Lewis could send out to us?
The form?
If you can send me a copy of that.
Jim Hurwitz basically read out loud a similar thing like that, had us all answer the question on set when we were gathered. You know, have you got a temperature? He took the temperatures, actually. Have you had any this symptom, that symptom?
Yeah.
Have you been anybody do you know anybody who's had COVID? Have you been near anybody you know had COVID?
That's part of the general operating procedure for going into Chevron or going into Gilead. They do the same thing, take your temp and ask you the same questions, either verbally or on paper.
Jason, I think that test with the 85%, that might be a hurdle too high for both of us.
Yeah,
That could be several false positives.
several.
Can you renew your driver's license at the same time?
So does anybody actually know anybody who's got COVID-19?
Yes.
Yep.
It is real. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a hoax.
It's
Guy up
a
the street, a couple guys in my neighborhood came down with it pretty bad. One guy was a DP out on, I think, either Survivor or The Amazing Survival Race. He's one of those jet-setting DP dudes, reality TV guy. He came down with it real hard, but he beat it. But it was.
He didn't catch it at work, did he?
He doesn't know where he got it, but he was traveling, you know, in January, and came home and tested. You know, he was able to get a test when tests were not being handed out, only because he had been traveling so much for work. They pushed him to the front of the line. He came down positive and quarantined, almost died, but pushed through it, and now seems to be fine. But he's not working. I mean, he's the same boat as the rest of us, but he survived it.
How old was
he was a young, healthy, maybe he's 40 at the most, 40, early 40s, maybe late 30s. A lot of Marine veterans that I know have got it, you know, on some of the sites that I belong to. But they're elderly, you know, kind of upper echelon in age, 50 plus, but quite a few have been hospitalized for it.
Yeah, my stepmom had it. She came through. She's in a nursing home on the East Coast.
Well, I think I told the story about my future brother-in-law and my sister. Both had it, and my brother-in-law was touch and go for 3 weeks in the hospital. But then when he got out, he proposed. So that's kind of sweet.
Was he seeing any residuals after he got better, like weakened lung capacity and all that stuff that they're talking about, degraded health?
I haven't heard of any problems. But
both the people that I know that have had it, both experienced lingering health issues. And then my wife's coworker died from it, and he was 50.
Wow.
Right.
It's young.
A crew member on the high school graduation shoot that I did a couple of weeks ago had it. He's a local 16 member, and he had it. He figures he got it on March 13th, Friday the 13th, when everything came down. He had a fairly mild case. He was sick for several weeks, though. His temperature, he said, never went over 100. But he felt like hell. He'd get up, have breakfast, go back to bed, get up, have lunch, go back to bed. And he does experience lingering body effects. He had a skin rash, and he's had various aches and pains. So it does linger with post symptom, post effects. And he's tested negative now, but he did have it.
Has he taken the antibody test?
Not yet as of that shoot, but he was going to go get one. Yeah.
Is there any more information out there as far as reinfection goes, or once you get it and you get through it, are you then at that point pretty much immune?
Nothing definitive that I've heard.
Okay.
There are some reports of people who did come down with it afterwards, at least one that was in the media.
I thought I saw something that was in the news yesterday, but I didn't really look at it. I only saw the headline. But I think it said that they're not sure it lasts, that the antibodies last more than 3-4 months.
I did hear that also, yeah.
And then you're susceptible to reinfection after that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's true or just, who knows? There's a lot of stuff that's in the process of being figured out.
Yeah, it can happen real quick. A friend posted on Facebook this morning, cousin checked into the hospital last Tuesday morning with body aches and chills. They tested positive for COVID-19. She died yesterday morning around 4 a.m. of kidney failure, 23 years old.
Oh my God.
Is that around here? In this area?
I'm not sure where it was. The post came from a friend in New York, but didn't say where.
Well, we're very lucky to be living here.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Still, it doesn't make you want to get into a small room with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
I think we'll know more when the data collection gets a little bit more organized, and the powers that be get it the hell out of the way and let the scientists do their work.
That would be the next administration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Trump is actually already saying he thinks we have too many tests. It's hard to believe that. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't be surprised by anything he says he does.
Yeah, it's a problem with testing. Like if you take a pregnancy test, you might get pregnant.
If it looks bad, it doesn't exist. It's like the COVID doesn't exist. The investigations that the Attorney General in New York State was doing, they don't exist. The book by Jerkhead doesn't exist that he's trying to stop from coming out. So these things don't exist unless you start looking for them.
Yeah. I was speaking with a friend who lives in Idaho, Boise, and she hangs out with a lot of the Mormons now. She's kind of a Jewish American princess that hangs out with the Mormons. It's kind of funny. But she says most of them won't wear masks, and they think they got it in their minds that it's an impingement on personal freedom. It's just like really odd thinking, they don't just accept it as science. They can't seem to. And the whole group is like that. And this is in Boise. There's like a whole bunch of, these different groups that all communicate with each other, and they have meetings and everything, and they don't wear masks.
Yeah.
Yeah, wait till they stop dropping dead.
A lot more people are going to have to die before a lot of those people start waking up to it not being the picture that Trump is painting. It's kind of funny that this whole TikTok thing caused so many people, unless that's being used as an excuse for the low turnout at his campaign. I'm curious.
House.
What's that again?
You almost wish it was a packed house, don't
Yeah, I know.
Well, maybe. I'd like to find out how many TikTokers actually registered for this, because that way we might actually find out, how much of it was that and how much of it was like Trumpers not wanting to show up because they didn't want to risk this thing here. Because I think that throws a little confusion on the whole thing, unless somebody could actually come up with those numbers.
Yeah.
But if anybody hears about that, let me know. I'd be curious.
At some point, it is kind of Darwinism, though. So
The problem is all those people become spreaders.
well, that is it.
If they're not wearing masks, even though we are,
Mm.
they put us at risk.
Yeah.
Even the smart ones will get killed.
I'm just waiting for the next Sarah Cooper riff.
Yeah.
Everybody has seen her, right?
I have Sarah Cooper's riff.
Yeah.
I'll look for that.
Oh yeah, you got to see it.
She's the comedian.
It makes
that
you
does
play it over and over and over again. It's the best laugh I've had.
Yeah.
Ever.
It reminds me of that other one that I can't remember who did it. That thing, It's Fucked Up. Have you guys seen that song? That comedian who sings that thing? We don't know who fucked it up. Whoever it is who fucked it up, it's time to unfuck it up. Have you guys seen that one? I'll get a link to that. It's very funny. It's appropriate, even though it's not specifically about this. It's just about it's fucked up.
It's fucked up.
The great thing about Sarah Cooper is she doesn't change any of his words.
I know. It's
All she does is say exactly what he said, exactly like he does. And it's just, it becomes even more insane.
It's totally insane. What is it called? Is it medical or something on that order? It's great. It's brilliant, really.
I gotta jump off. Great to see everybody. Check in next week.
Jason.
Great to see you, Jason.
All right.
You're going to come by tomorrow, right, Jason?
Yeah, I'll give you a text.
Okay, probably if you want to catch Joe before he buries himself in my crawl space, maybe come by earlier.
Sounds good.
Or text him,
Okay. All right, guys. See ya.
Hey, Jason.
All right.
I'm gonna head out too.
I'm putting up a link to the Sarah Cooper videos here.
Awesome.
Send that link to the other one there. That I think is
Yeah,
good.
there it is.
Does anybody heard from? I tried to get in touch with Jim Hurwitz to find out if there's any news on that. It seems like they focus.
He was here for a moment, but he looks like he got a call and disappeared. I've not heard any updates. I don't know that they've gotten funding still at this point.
All I know is that they've changed the focus from being COVID-19 to COVID-19 and or Black Lives Matter. So complete shift. Two good causes, but it certainly complicates things when you're trying to set up something and get funding for it. And then,
yeah, it kind of dilutes the message a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's what they're up against.
Yeah, I think it's the funders are like wanting to shift or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming up so quickly. I can't imagine if they don't have somebody in place at this point.
Yeah.
We're only 6 days away from there.
Is anybody else
happening then? It's been pushed off. That's the other thing. Is the date's been pushed off.
Oh, it has. I didn't get that.
When undisclosed, disclosed date at this point, so I don't know.
Is anybody else started? I've been like wondering whether things are going a little too far with the statue business. Like statue of George Washington was knocked over, and
Golden Gate Park, they tore down the statue of Cervantes.
Cervantes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Grant, which London Breed said, people are just angry and we have to let them express that anger, but it just seemed really misdirected. It's like, oh, there's a white guy on a pedestal, let's pull him down, right?
What did Cervantes do?
He was white, I guess.
He was tilting at windmills.
Yeah.
Sounds
He
like
guy.
Then there's the Theodore Roosevelt statue in front of the Natural History Museum that they just pulled down. But I mean, they pulled it down voluntarily. We were standing there a couple months ago. We were actually standing at that statue talking about it. How we felt.
Well, what they were saying, and I didn't pay attention until this morning. I saw a little bit of it on Democracy Now. It has two Indians in basically positions of slavery. So in a way, it does make sense. In fact, this whole thing, I don't know what Cervantes did. I'd be curious to find out. But Roosevelt is somewhat clear. And then, it is really a time of reckoning, I hope, that we start looking at our history and we start acknowledging the the racism, the slavery, the whole thing.
Oh,
I
God.
mean, we've got a serious history, and it's not stopping. Internationally, we're creating the situations that, you know, are causing the same kinds of things happening in other worlds, other places, slavery in the East and so forth, Africa, you know, looking the
Yeah,
other way.
I worry a little bit that when you start tearing down George Washington, especially, I mean,
Yeah.
and Thomas Jefferson, I mean, Jefferson's relationship to slavery is pretty fucked up. And George Washington had slaves, but he did free them when he died. He freed all of his slaves.
You
Of
know,
course, he didn't need the money anymore.
I think with ripping down the statues, a lot of them should indeed go, but there's a certain element of madness of the mob and this exhilaration of the mob and the power of the mob. And it crosses over from freedom of expression to just sort of this primal destructiveness. And it can, you know, it goes there. That's what mobs are about. So.
Yeah, no.
But I think we could do something different. We could also like shift it and turn it into, okay, we've got statues of these people who are being glorified, and is there a way to make a new statue that actually tells the whole story? You know? I mean, in a way, how do you make the Roosevelt statue more relevant and so that people get the whole context of it?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I would get rid of the slaves. You know?
Like maybe you could even keep up the Confederate ones there, but you do something to it to make it so that it actually shows the context and not glorifying the single person and their place in history, but what they've done, you know, the context of the whole thing.
So I don't think you can do that with the Confederates. They were put up specifically.
Yeah, I know. That was long after the Civil War was over.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to see like a statue of Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, you know, some of the leaders of more leaders of the civil rights movement. And
yeah, what about putting Harriet Tubman and facing straight at some of these characters, a little larger than them,
facing,
you know?
off across the street?
Yeah.
like the little girl in Wall Street. Yeah,
I was thinking about the woman with the handbag hitting the Nazis.
I don't know that one.
Oh, it's a great. I'll find it. I'll send it out. It's a great. There's a photograph of this woman swinging her handbag at a Nazi. Like a black and white photograph, and in that square where that picture was taken, there's a statue of her in that pose.
Far out.
With the handbag in mid-swing. One of my favorite statues is in Golden Gate Park. It's the pirate in front of the de Young. Has anybody taken a look at that? I love it. It's like chrome.
Drunken pirate.
What's that?
It's the Bacchanalian pirate.
Well, it just from a distance you look at it and think, oh yeah, it's a pirate. And it's all chrome. It's very shiny. You get up close to it, you realize he's got 2 eye patches. He's got 2 hooks and 2 peg legs.
Yeah.
And it's like a commentary on what a stereotypical pirate is. If this is a pirate, then this is an even better pirate. And it's just such a great meta commentary on statues. It's right behind the fountain in front of the de Young. Here, I have a picture. I'll bring it up.
I'm going to take off. Good to see everybody.
Great to see you, Tim.
See you,
Bye-bye.
Tim.
See you next time.
And give me
Are there any statues of Sir Francis Drake around? I've been hearing bad things about him.
Right,
yeah.
Give me a second here.
Well, I hope they don't take down the Lewis Carroll statue and the Alice in Wonderland statue in New York.
I just got an email for my first potential drone shoot since last year.
Wow.
So I have to find out what that's about. But anyway.
I got an email this morning.
I'd like to see Alice in Wonderland's statue over by the Haight. That would be appropriate.
You could make like Trump, like a little gremlin right beside her.
Alice putting something in her mouth.
Well, what about at the downtown San Anselmo in the Park of the Imagination? You've got Indiana Jones and Yoda.
Right. Here. I'm going to share this.
Statue of me there?
Yeah, it's great. Looks just like you.
I'm going to share this photo here.
I'm going to have to go there and get a picture taken.
This is the photo of the woman with the handbag. I just saw that. I looked online for that.
Here we go. There's the statue.
Yeah. And
Arr.
two cutlasses he can't use. Two legs he really can't use unless, he's good at balancing.
2 parrots, 2 eye patches.
The birds see for him.
That's great.
I love it. It's one of my
How
favorite.
the hell? I've missed that all these years.
I think it only went up recently. Yeah.
That's good.
Powder keg, or is it a keg of wine or beer?
I'm glad that went up recently. I would really be sad to think that I was that unobservant.
I think it's within the last 2 years.
Yeah, I remember vaguely seeing it when I went there I can't remember what show it was, the black art show that was there. It was pretty interesting.
Well, what's really great is, like I said, from a distance, you wouldn't notice anything wrong with it. Until you get close and really start looking at it, you think, wait a minute.
The whimsy of the West Coast.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go and see what this exciting possibility of a job finally is.
Good luck.
Is that
I
what
gotta go deal with my plumbers, so I'll see you guys next week.
Okay,
Yeah.
take care, guys.
Good luck
Bye-bye.
with that, Dave.
Well, I got to go clean out my garage.
Good luck with that too.
Oh, yeah. Bye-bye.
Go paint cupboard doors.
Thanks for doing this again, Lewis. You did a
Anytime.
good job.
And hey, thanks for last week. Thanks for handling that. I appreciate it.
You did a fairly good job of replacing me today.
Okay.
Not perfect, but pretty good.
Thanks, Lewis. So I'm gonna bail. I got a bunch of stuff to do around here.
I saw that email. I'll look into that. So,
Yeah.
Kale, my first question is: I know it costs quite a bit of money to get into webinar mode in Zoom,
Mhm.
so it might be tough for me to play with it unless
Gotcha.
to get access to an account that has it.
So that was the next thing I was going to say was like, do you have, I didn't know if like the license of the version you have offers webinar mode, or it's a whole nother level, or.
Right, Danielle? It's an extra license for the webinar. It's a monthly charge to get webinar mode, and I think it's a sliding scale based on how many viewers you have.
Gotcha.
But it is pretty prohibitively expensive for when I managed a book group a little while ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it just made no sense. I don't remember what the pricing was, but
Do they have a freebie test?
not that I can tell. It's just part of Zoom.
Test time?
Yes.
Well, they did mention the guy who I'm working with at Exploratorium. He did mention that he's bounced it off of our IT group as to whether they want to buy, like an enterprise license for the whole institution, and see if we can use it for other things that we're doing. Because one of the things we're holding our all staff meetings virtually right now and doing it through Google Meet. But I know there's some stuff that they're pretty unhappy with.
Yeah, Google's kind of a mess.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Yeah, that was my question, is whether Zoom is their preferred platform, or
Currently no, only because we get the Google Enterprise license from Google because we're a .edu. We have a partnership kind of thing with them. So they're big.
Zoom I know Zoom offers for my wife, they get free accounts because they're teachers.
Okay.
So I wonder if Zoom would extend that to the Exploratorium also.
Yeah, and then our IT department is also just a little wary because of the early Zoom issues with the leaks and breaks and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So, but yeah, we'll see. It's out there, and we'll see what happens. The whole thing might go away, but we're trying to support any stuff that we can do. But and it also might be the kind of thing. I think it's the kind of thing that would be well managed through like Wirecast.
Yeah.
Have all the calls come in and then just be able to, have a TD essentially who's switching and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But at this point, I don't know if that's an option either. So.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you in mind.
And our video group, our web media video group is completely, they're swamped. They're completely booked and they can't even look at this thing and consider it. So Otherwise, we would just kind of hand it off to them and let them do it with their Wirecast and all that kind of stuff. But they've got already got their hands full. So it's the weird thing where, like, all the stuff that we do at the museum is moving over to the virtual web version. So certain people at the museum are now getting taxed because everybody wants their stuff out there on the web. However, we just laid off a bunch of people and as well as cut everybody's schedules back. So it's like, we're just trying to do what we can do.
Yeah.
Well,
You might talk to, do you know Marty Brennis?
Yeah.
Gail?
Yeah.
Yeah, talk to Marty. He works with Alex Lindsay, and they do tons and tons of Zoom meetings, and they have their own proprietary systems that they're putting out and equipping people with, and
Okay.
combinations of gear. He's pretty busy. He's working a lot. Marty is actually Alex's chief engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So I can send you his contact.
I probably don't. It's been quite a long. In fact, I've been dealing with his brother more often, who's he's an audio installer who works with us. With our exploratory stuff. But I did some stuff with Marty, but it was like back in the day. It's like back when you were working on Pirates and stuff like that.
Yeah. No, they've been advancing. In fact, Alex has a daily Zoom meeting that he does starting at 7 in the morning because it's worldwide. And he has like 200 to 300 people dialing in on that.
Wow.
You can get I can send you a link that you can write, email him to get an invite to it's called Office Hours.
Okay.
And they stream it on YouTube, part of that meeting, but there are YouTube recordings you can go to and get a sense of what the meetings are about.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
They're wide ranging to do with production in all its aspects. They talk about switchers, lenses, cameras, audio, graphics, editing systems, a whole range. And on Mondays, they're having an education specialty meeting every Monday now.
Okay.
So check that out.
Cool.
Yeah, I would love that. If you could send me, whatever link you could send me that could get me there.
He's moving over. He's moving, taking an office at 3210.
He's supposedly moving into 3210.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kale, were you able to get anywhere with Vitalant or Vitalant or?
I kind of, no, actually, I've kind of walked away from that just because it's been such a mess. Like I said, I got my appointment. I was able to get my appointment through Red Cross for a temporary, like a pop-up blood drive out at Nicasio Fire Station.
Okay.
And that's in mid-July. But the Vitalant stuff, Vitalant. At some point I'll dive back in because I'd like to, out of convenience, I'd like to try and make it work. And they seem to be, an okay group of people.
I just, I've never given blood, so I just.
Oh, okay.
I contacted David asking where to go, and he sent me there, and he said, "Oh, and by the way, Kale is doing this." So I thought, "Oh, I'll look at that date."
Yeah, because David was saying on one of these calls, David was saying he couldn't get in. So I was dicking around there the other day. It's like, there's openings this day. So I sent that to him.
Yeah.
And I think and I was trying to get in as well. But yeah, honest to God, if you log in on the laptop, if you log in on the mobile version, your login and password and everything will not work on a laptop, on a computer version.
And I had the problem where I went to the site, created an account, then made an appointment, and it didn't attach it to my username.
Yes, exactly.
So then I had to go in and log in separately, create an account, and then I had two appointments. One was attached to my email address and one wasn't. So I had to call them to get them to remove one of the appointments. But I've never done it, so I'm a little nervous, and I just kind of feel like I have no excuse anymore especially now that I finally know my blood type.
Yeah, it's seriously, it's no big deal. I mean, some people might bruise a little bit more, depending, but and sure, it's going to hurt a little bit, but it's really good to do. Plus, you're flushing a pint out, right? You're flushing. That's the way I always look at it. As I go lose a pint so I can get some fresh blood in there. But just start with the basic whole blood, and then from there you can work your way up to the other stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, it's a really good thing to do. You will feel good about it. Yeah. And it's kind of neat through the Red Cross. I will then later get like a text or an email saying, hey, your blood was used in this emergency room, or your blood
Really?
was used for surgery or whatever.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Plus they now do, I believe Red Cross is doing COVID testing when you give blood. Vitalant is probably doing that as well.
They'd have to, yeah. They would
You would
really
think.
have to.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good point. I didn't ask about it. I should ask about that because I was thinking of getting tested anyway. But
Yeah.
I wonder what kind of test, whether it's a blood test or whether they're just doing the swab, but they wouldn't get results soon enough. I guess they could test you and then take the blood and then.
Right. Your blood, when they take your blood, it goes through a whole battery of tests before it even goes anywhere.
Right.
It's like a week before they even do it. There's all kinds of tests that they run. Because even though you might, say, yes, I was not in England from 1982 to 1984, they're still going to run all their tests.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, nice seeing you all. Thank you once again, Louis, for doing this whole thing. This is great. This has been great, and you do a great job with it. And I love seeing everybody. So, hey, Andy.
Yes.
Did you get those pictures that I sent you from the 1985 ILM yearbook?
I don't.
Perhaps I had an old email. We were going through the archives at the Exploratorium, and we found this 1985. Oh shoot! It might even be. It's in the other room. This 1985 like Lucas Company's yearbook, and it's hilarious. The artwork on it is hilarious. There's so many things that are no longer correct in it. Pictures of like
books. I might have that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's great, and it's like got a whole thing about their computer department and stuff like that. But you're in there, because everybody's in there. You're in there, and it's got a picture of you and a little description. And then there's a cat that's in there. There's a cat that's listed as an employee out at Skywalker. I think he was a mouser. He was a mouser for the studio.
Important position,
Yeah.
I have an old email that's dead now. AndyNed@gmail is my current one.
Oh, okay, yeah. This was like this was Go Envision or something.
Yeah, toss that one.
Okay, so sorry, let me write this down. Andy Ned.
Yeah, 2 D's at Gmail.
AndyNed@gmail. Okay, I'll send it there.
Great.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna head out then too. But it was great to see everybody.
Thank you.
All right. See you next week.